So the topic today, let's talk about this. And I could have scaled it down a little bit to try to make it easier for some, but you're as crazy as I am, so we go. This is important because the whole world, the topic, the world, it's all in your head. Everything is in our head, symbolically. Everything is in our mind. Now, this is going to be a little challenging to talk about because people will say these words, oh yeah, man, isn't that cool? It's all in our mind, and mind creates. And people don't quite understand what this means. It means that I'm not actually, it looks like I'm standing here and everything that I can see is outside of myself. So there's the evidence, and that is the world of linear thinking. If it's linear, it must be true. And we're told the opposite is true. That which is linear is anything but real, but true. It's that which you can't see that is more real than that which you can see. Oh, well, that's really out there. That which I can't see. So our brain goes, no, that's too much, man. I need to know that what I see is real because that is easier for little old me. But the profound part of us is like, oh, it's beyond words. The unseen. So when you hear faith is faith in that which you cannot see, it's not what people think even that's saying. We have talks on record just on faith because people think faith is in things unseen. No, it is, but not the way you think. It doesn't mean faith is, I hope this is going to happen. I can't see it yet, but my faith is that it will happen. Crossing our fingers. That's instead of prayer position, that's our prayer. I hope this will work out. That's people's concept of faith. That's not it. Faith in things unseen means only the unseen is real. In the most grand sense, meaning spirit, God. You have a loved one, they die. That thing that they did, they died. Their body died. Them no longer being here is a lie. It's not true. What's true is they're more here than when they were here. Because now they can feel all my feelings. They know my thoughts, at least to some greater level. When they're here, people have so many walls and barriers, they can barely communicate at all. So they're more here when they're not here. It's interesting stuff because Jesus talks in diary notes to Helen, who wrote A Course in Miracles. She talks about Edgar Cayce. He talks about Edgar Cayce to Helen. And he tells Helen, this dude, I'm paraphrasing, this dude was amazing. Like, this dude was amazing. And Jesus says, he was as clear as you can get in his channeling. But there were some problems. Namely, that as a human being, he was having a hard time integrating what he knew spiritually and what he knew humanly. And they were conflicted. And those conflicts would create also sometimes errors in his readings. As clear as he was, it would still create errors in his readings. So man, we're doing the best we can, guys. We're trying to juggle the truth that we can't see with what seems to be and deal with this as though it's real. But it's all in our minds. We're learning to understand that, but to understand that everything is in our mind, which means all power to change everything is in our minds. It really is. But we don't totally know that. And so we become, you have a choice. You can be totally enlightened, but then it's hard to do that in a body. Or you can be totally materialistic, and that's not very high or good, very healthy. So you know where we are in those two options? Neither. We're in between. We're conflicted, constantly conflicted, with knowing the truth but respecting the illusion. So Cayce knew the truth. He knew, this guy really knew, he understood. 6th grade education only. But his education came from spirit. That's profound. That's a university we all got to go to, right? Holy U. All right? I just made that up, but, somebody can probably copyright it now and make a buck. But Holy U. And so God, is Cayce's teacher. Like, he's so open. But as a human being, it caused agitations. Because this energy is coming and the body's going, the spirit is willing, man, but the flesh is weak. So it becomes conflicted energy. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, inner conflict and so on. But the poor guy, man, he was conflicted. And so he would say, okay, I got to do these readings. It's the right thing to do, and he's correct. You're trying to help people, and that's correct. Always do the right thing. So he's following that order. All of us, always do the right thing. But do you know how many readings were requested per day? 1,500. 1,500. Now, you know, I'm a pretty good guy, and I'm fairly centered, and I feel good about integrating good mastery skills and consciousness in my being. But hand me 1,500 readings and leave it to me to have to decide who doesn't get help today. And it's going to break my heart. I mean, I'm a pretty balanced guy, and I don't think I could handle that. Because that wears on you, a human being. And you know, some of them are like, well, my dog is sick. What do? Sorry, animals aren't important, and you toss that out. Only humans. And then, well, my grandmother, well, if they're too old, we don't help them because they're going to die soon anyway. Like, where do you draw the line? Kids first, women and children first, like it's a, Titanic or something. How do you decide, guys? 1,500, and that's just today. There's another 1,500 tomorrow. You know what that does to your nervous system? So Casey kept doing readings, and he died of exhaustion. Now, I got to say, that's a profound way to go. If you're going to go, I'd rather be selfless than selfish. Nice. But Jesus does tell Helen, who wrote the course, about Casey, and he does say, one of the reasons Casey allowed himself to overwork was because some of the residual old school tapes in his mind was, if you're a good Christian, you will be a martyr. So the martyr was leaking through and subversively causing Casey to overwork himself. We can look at it and go, oh, those people, he was so kind to try to help all this. He was, but Jesus says, I would have told him, ask me which ones are the priority today. Oh, we forgot. We're like rescuing. We immediately jump in and want to fix everything. And we don't realize there's a priority that could be there that would take everyone into account. Casey did not have to die in his 60s. All the readings he did, he could have done a lot more. And there were some other conflicts that came through in the readings just because the human struggle. So we're trying to battle all this. We're trying to deal with this inner conflict. We know the truth, the spirit is, but we're struggling with the human density trying to fool us into thinking that something else is true. So on our day-to-day basis, when we learn to start the day and say, God, what would you have me do today? Jesus says in the course, but then also ask and not do. What would you have me do and not do? You're having a conversation and there's a little conflict. You can say quietly in your mind, you don't have to say it out loud, but verbal conflict, and you say to yourself, God, what would you have me say and not say? Jesus or Mother, Divine Mother, what would you have me say and not say, do and not do? Remember the not do, because that allows the rescuer to be retired. It thins out the odds of me going too far or going overboard. Is that making sense? All right. So we have this concept that this whole world is out there, and I'm little me in this world. And the truth, though, is that it's reversed. The outside world is actually a projection, not only a psychological projection, but like a projector room. I have a quantum mind. And so I quantumly project a hologram of the world. It's mine and it's ours. This thing we see, there's a Christmas tree next to me, or there's a stained glass here, or a guy standing here. This is all a hologram symbolizing what you individually wanted to see or chose to see, and what we collectively agreed to see today. And that thing, that co-creation, that subconscious, it's collective consciousness. That's what Casey used to read. So sometimes Casey was always right, but he would be wrong in the sense occasionally because he's still only tapping our collective mind, which is still not yet completely divine. Collective mind means it's the collective consciousness of anything that's ever happened, is happening, and would likely happen. The likely means the future. All you can ever see is possibilities and probabilities because it's a math equation. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 2 is 4. It's a progression. So if yesterday such and such happened and today such and such is happening, you can now predict what tomorrow will likely look like, but you can't say for sure because somebody might put 2 + 2 into 2 + 3. If we collectively agree, no more racism, that's it. Somebody threw a curve in there, somebody threw something else in there, and humanity can shift. But we have to collectively agree on that shift. If we don't collectively agree, the new curve that's thrown in there will become irritating to us, and we will kill the messenger. That's what humans do. I know, we're all love. We're all peaceful and like beings, and we're all indigos. But no, the human ego is not peaceful and happy. The human ego is nothing but destructive, self-destructive and destructive to others. It's the part of us that wants to not be God. So that can't be good news. So there's this part, we live in this world saying, well, am I the little thing in this world? No, you're actually, your brain, your mind, your consciousness, it doesn't live in the shell of your skull. Okay? We think it does. And again, the linear world says, the thinker is nothing but the brain. It's nothing but the nervous system. Where's that? It's in my skull. So now I have reduced myself to gray matter in the skull. The truth of the matter is, my brain is only a small microcosmic representation of my mind. And the brain is working off neurons which are made by patterning. Which means my brain that I think is me is nothing but patterning. So wait a second, am I not allowed to have new? No, you can only have new experiences with which the gray matter and neurons will decide which ones are acceptable. Usually only those that are acceptable based on your previous patterns. We do not agree with your new opinions, with your new experiences. Hey, guess what? I found out money does grow on trees. We do not agree. Off with his head. The little inner dictator says no, but that's just my patterning. But nobody wants to think outside that pattern. This is it. My brain is the thinker. No, it isn't. Where you have neurons in the brain which are running on old patterns, they're made of old patterns, that brain is like one neuron in your thoughts, in your mind. Your brain and mind are not the same. The brain is nothing but a manifestation. It's like a symbol of one neuron, of many, but it's one neuron of thought, of mind. And then my mind is simply a microcosm, in a sense, of my beliefs. So when I believe that I am as God created me, that can download into my mind, which will download into my brain, and I will become a wholly minded person. But as long as I'm conflicted, I'm not allowing any of that. So what we do is the world keeps looking like it's out here, but in fact, the entire world, my mind looks like my brain ends in the skull, but my mind and my beliefs, my consciousness is actually out to the farthest reaches of the universe. Mine, little old me. My brain looks like it only takes up this much space, so how could I be the universe? It's amazing, but it's true. My brain ends here. My mind, like the universe, is actually endless. My mind? Yeah. Which means if picture my skull doesn't end here, my skull metaphorically ends with the universe, with it ending. That's where my skull really is. That's how big my brain and my mind really is, which means everything here that I'm seeing is a neuron, metaphorically. You're a neuron and you're a neuron. You're neurons. Okay? Not Nimrods. Neurons. So when you see Jesus, and I like that guy, he's a neuron in your mind. Now picture this. When Jesus decided to wake up and awaken his consciousness, first it has to be I have to take responsibility that the whole universe is the I am, me, this guy. And if I don't like what I see in the universe, it might be created by the I am not, my ego. So if I choose, you asked for it. So if I choose to be the I am, I'm starting to wake up. So Jesus, oh, thank God, there's Jesus, and he and he becomes light. He becomes the master of the universe. Hasn't been done yet. There's masters of nations and races, but no universal master yet. Boom, the whole universe, which is why he says, I alone have the keys to the universe. I woke up and I got it. And I'm you. So it's not like I'm better than you. I'm a part of you. Why? Because there's a guy historically, seemingly separate from us, but he is a neuron that woke up and said, not only am I going to wake up, all of this thing that I am, this neuron is pure light. But we're neurons in his mind too. So that means when the Christians say, accept Jesus and you've accepted goodness, you've accepted awakening, he's a savior and so on and so on. They don't know what they're saying. They're saying it traditionally, but it's actually true. He symbolizes a neuron that woke up, but that neuron is in this universe, which means it's one of my neurons, one of my beliefs. So he woke up for me. He's a part of me that woke up. He is a part of me that woke up. He's not different, he's not better, except that he made a healthier choice sooner. But he's still a part of me. There's no time, so history doesn't matter. But if this is true, there's another guy named Adolf Hitler. Now, wait a minute. I'm not allowing that neuron in there. It's already there. And you can never reach enlightenment. You can never go home until you accept that. You can't partially wake up and call it awake because you're still partially asleep. As long as you're still partially asleep, you are not awake. Partially asleep means thinking judgmentally, but it also means thinking that someone is separate from you. So just as much as I'm ready to like breathe in, okay, Jesus is a part of me, thank you. Now Christ is awakened in Jesus, therefore it's also awakened in me. Now I need to fan that spark into a flame and let all of my thoughts start to vibrate to that. So the whole choir of my being has to go, and so it is. And I have to watch where I'm conflicted about that, where I still resist. So you start to recognize, is there anybody that you can't imagine accepting oneness with? Well, there are. There's some really mean people. Those are the unhealed, unsaved, still judged, people or memories. But each one of those is a neuron, which means part of my mind is still not holy. Holy means sacred. It means also complete. So there are people, no way, man, I'm not forgiving them. That's no problem. You don't have to force yourself to forgive anybody. But to wake up, you have to accept. Before you can even get close to awakening, you have to first accept there's still a problem. There are some unhealed people or unforgiven people or memories. You don't have to forgive them, just accept that it's there. If you can't at least do that, then you're not at all awakening. You're not getting it at all. To know you're growing spiritually, you have to have arrived into the word called responsibility. Not blame, responsibility. Like everybody is a neuron in my mind. Everybody is an experience and a memory of mine. I don't like that person. I don't like that race. I don't like that gender or whatever it is. That's my own struggle. Just like I mentioned, Edgar Cayce, as clear as he was, those bits, those doubts and fears, even the little bit of fundamental Christian left in him was still subversively affecting his ability to just really become that channel. I didn't say to do the channeling, become that channeling. So any conflict in him became part of his work, unfortunately. Still stellar. I mean, God dang, 4.5 stars out of 5. This guy's like really got it together. The average person doesn't even have 2. Stars. So he's doing great work, but still affected. Helen was still affected. She's channeling A Course in Miracles. Wow, what a holy work. That was anything but smooth. She was conflicted. She was a psychiatrist who was hearing voices. That wasn't going to be easy. She thought, well, based on my studies, I'm nuts. She struggled with it. She struggled with because of her problems, her issues. Jesus told Helen, your husband, you fight with him a lot. Yes, I really struggle with him. He does all these irritating things, Jesus once tells her, he says, what name some of the obsessions. Oh, him and his bookstore. He sells books, he owns a bookstore. What's with that? Jesus says, well, he was there and he was contributing to the burning of Alexandrian Library. He never got over it. So now he has his bookstore and he's obsessed on keeping books, ancient and important books. That's his. You want to condemn him for it? That's just his thing. Oh, okay. I get that. Now, Helen, let's talk about you. There's that. Why are you always so irritable? Why don't you trust? What's going on? She had to always be in control. She had this really profound thinking mind, thought processing mind, and she was having to be in control. So this whole thing of letting go. First, trusting men. Secondly, she was Jewish, so trusting Jesus was a little off for her. And hearing voices wasn't really well, and she's an atheist, and so anything God-related, nothing about this was good. And she was supposed to just embody it and go, oh, well, so be it. That wasn't going to happen. So she fought it. They called this the battle of heaven and Helen. It's true. She fought it all the way. And Jesus spoke to her about her own issues. And he explained to her, other irritating things about her husband. He would leave things around, like dirty clothes. He'd leave them on the floor. And she would go nuts about it. So he says, well, let me explain how this works, Helen. Your husband is feeling so obsessed with trying to be good and in control of himself. And he does. But the little parts that are not yet healed manifest as a little shirt on the floor. It's like you sneezed out an unhealed part of yourself. You see what I'm saying there, guys? These symbols of unhealed stuff, they become socks left on the floor. That's your way of saying chaos that I was stuffing inside became my socks on the floor. I got to leak it out somewhere. Dogs will mess there and you'll throw your socks over there. It's little messes we leave as creatures because it's unhealed stuff. So then he says, now why don't we now talk about why that irritates you, Helen? Because doesn't she have her own obsessions, perfectionisms? So anything that was not in order the way she would like it to be became a perfect lesson, a perfect demonstration of where your lessons are. So I want to make this clear now. All the world is our mind, and everything in it, experiences as well, they're neurons firing, that's all. Synapse, neurons, this electric experience is happening, and it's all within us. So if I start to have a pretty pleasant life, it shows that I must be fairly at peace inside. That's good news. If I have a lot of conflict and chaos and drama in my life, that might mean that I'm reflecting unhealthy stuff within me. That's true. And it's also not true. Because before your mind sets in on, so a good life represents good people, challenged people must have been bad or must be bad. No. Because you could have a challenged life because you're a good person saying, bring it on. I want it all done this life. So it'll look like hell, but you'll be done. There's other peoples that go, listen, man, little doses. I want everything to look good in my life and just give me few challenges. And they look like, wow, they're stellar. Like they can do anything. They can do it. They get the lottery and they're not even nice. I've been sitting doing golden candles and prayer wheels and mantras and I ams and subconscious subliminal tapes. I am prosperous. I don't even have 3 pennies in my purse. I'm prosperous. And my neighbor, who's a jerk, won the lottery. Why? How? Don't try to attribute all this in a linear way to try to figure it out. Yes, it's true. Chaos reflects our chaos. But don't start getting into judging those with more chaos have worse souls. Because again, they could be finishing stuff up and you could be a long way away even if your life is looking good. Your job is simply to say what is out on the plate, work on that, chew on that. What's on your plate? Don't compare, don't compete. What's it look like out here? And then work on what's before you. Buddhists will say it's all in the mind. They'll even say there's not really a thing like God because it's all in your mind. So really, when you're looking for God, it's in your mind. They're right, and they're also wrong. Because before your mind existed, God is. Before you were created, there was already a God. So it's not true to say that just you are God. God existed, created us in its image, and I don't mean form, in its image. So we then were created. So we have a mind and a consciousness, and so does God. And we're part of God's consciousness. But before Michael's consciousness was, God is. So it's still right to say, yes, God can be accessed within us. But don't think you're the end all per se. You're still the created child, one whole child of God. Is that making sense? So, and this is kind of cool because people struggle. They struggle with that. Am I part of God? Am I not part of God? What do I do with this? You are God and yet part of God. That's why the Gospel of John says the Word was God and was with God. Because you're one with God and yet you're with as though seemingly like we're with like you're a guest, so to speak. You're God and yet you're also with God. So we're the created. So the conflicts will leak out there. And someone asked on my Friends of Michael Mirdad Facebook page, a beautiful question. They said, so animals, if you see an animal and it's hurt, should you help it? And beautiful story, man. She's talking about a bird she found and she nursed it back to health. And it's just amazing. Like it becomes like a child. She's taking care of it. It's close to her. It's like, she said it acts almost like a human. You know, it's just amazing. And I think it's great. But she brings up that some people will say, oh no, you shouldn't interfere with nature. Nature and the bird and a dog and a cat are parts of me. So when I help them, I'm helping myself. So it's always right to do right. I know there are teachers, there are gurus out there that say, oh no, you are intercepting their karma. You are not. You are not interfering with their karma in any kind of a negative sense. If it's true that you're intervening, if it's true at all that you're, stepping in and seemingly intercepting their karma, you're doing a right thing because it's called a miracle. Why would you say, and nothing should intervene with our karma? Let's all just live in hell, constant karma. No, miracles and grace are about releasing karma. And I know people say this, and I got all kinds of words for that. But I'll just say, forgive them. They know not what the hell they're talking about. All right? Just know God is good. When you feel that inside, do always, when in doubt, do the next right thing. Help. Be helpful. Don't let the head justify, well, it's nature. And I see these, you see these nature shows. And people say, well, there's this critter and it's dying, but the film crew has agreed. We signed documents, for this with the state that we would not interfere. I would interfere, help the animal, go to jail if I have to. Because it's the right thing to do. But thinking causes us to say, well, if you think about it a lot, which we love doing, overthinking, we'll find ways to say that that's wrong. But if we believe it's wrong to help, and we even have studies that prove it, do you know who dreamt up those studies? Our messed up minds. So we're proving the wounded side of ourselves to be valid. We dream it up. We dream up not helping, and we validate it and make it okay to not help. We have to break that trance and say, no, wait, what if it's right to help people? And then we start creating evidence of that. And that's the few of us. That's the few of us. Unfortunately, we're the minority. And so lots of people will tell you again and again and again, wrong to do this and that. And they'll have all kinds of testimonials around that. But they've dreamt those up. They're like proving their own case. And that's what we do. When you believe it, you will see it. Because they believe it's wrong, they're proving it externally. You and I have to say, well, wait, what if it's right to do good? And then we can start creating evidence of that, right? And if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? So it's part of us. It's part of our nature to say, let's just step in. Somebody else asked on that same Facebook page, a question about, because I shared Friday night's talk. I talked about regrets in our life and how those undermine us. And they do. Regrets undermine us. We think we have low self-worth. We think we have certain challenges in our life. If you don't have regrets, low self-worth has nothing to feed off of. So it would pass away and you would have high self-worth. Regrets. Things we wanted to do and didn't do. Things we wish we hadn't done and did do. With things we wish other people hadn't done to us and it happened. Those are regrets, and they are a dark food for the ego, and it dishes it out to different parts of ourselves like low self-worth. There's a saying, I remember Edgar Cayce once said, and it was a very strange statement, but he said, sins against the Father are forgivable, sins against the Holy Spirit are not forgivable. Which is not factually, it's not true, it's coming a little bit from his old stuff, but he's right as well. What does he mean though? He doesn't mean God's going to hold it against you if you have sins against the Holy Spirit. What he's saying is we believe that sins against the Holy Spirit will come back. And here's what it means. The Holy Spirit is also known as the Divine Mother. And the Divine Mother, the word mother, means matter. Which means when you do something against anything in this world, the karma is going to be there because the mother will have to manifest your beliefs in guilt and regret and shame. So the mother is going to materialize back to us all of our lessons. All we need to do is learn our lessons. But most human beings won't learn because first of all, they're not even going to try. But if they're going to try at all to work on lessons, they're going to make intellectual lessons out of things. like minimizing, denying that something happened. To take responsibility, that's how you start to heal. To say, all right, I'm not sure about this, or maybe I could have done this differently or that differently. Is that regret? It looks like it, but it's not. Because when you say, might I have done something different? Just ask yourself what it is, do differently from now on, and it's done. You then became the mother manifesting a new lesson for yourself, which is, I'm done. I got it. You can bring completion yourself. Otherwise, the mother will have to keep reflecting your regrets and shames and losses. So, I need to change this. I need to change. If I change my mind, and this is the great part, you cannot lose 1 pound of fat. You cannot gain any more health. You can't heal a problem with your liver. You can't do anything. We think you can. There's studies that prove it. Eat this and you'll be healthy. They're lying. If that were true, then why didn't Wonder Bread build my body in 12 different ways? They told to me, surely they didn't lie. Wonder Bread, isn't that what it is? 12 ways or something like that? Builds a body in 12 ways. In school, we used to make paste out of Wonder Bread. Do you remember there was an experiment you would do in school? They would make paste out of Wonder Bread. You know, they should have said binds your body in 12 different ways. You know, glues, your body together. So none of it's true, but what is true is what we believe. That's true. What we believe becomes evidenced. So, in our lives, guys, only miracles, which means a shift. Something was there and now it's not. That's called a miracle. And to get a miracle, you can't manipulate a miracle. A miracle comes from a change in consciousness. So watch. If this is my mind, which is the size of the universe, if this is my mind, and my mind, one neuron in my mind is that I have an illness in my body. We're trying to figure out ways to fix it as though the illness is us, as though we have a problem. The truth is, my consciousness needs to see the illness is a neuron. The illness isn't this size, and I'm a little victim of the illness, but that's what you're saying when you say, I'm sick. You're saying, I am this illness, and it's bigger than me. I can't lose weight. I can't seem to lose weight. I can't seem to, whatever it is. I'm broke financially. Nothing works. You're saying the problem is this big, and you're this big. That's what you're saying by default. It's doing this to me, and I can't fix it. It's lying. The truth is you're this big, and it's this big. And so you say, okay, so I'm better than it. Now you're learning affirmations. I'm bigger and better than this is not, so it has no power. You're getting there. There's one more step, though. Beyond, I'm the greater, you're small, you have no power. That's better than it having power, mind you. There's one more step. If I can heal that belief that created that neuron, if I can heal the thought behind it, it will pass away on its own. I don't need to affirm it on, I don't need to fight it, I don't need to fix it, I don't need to reiki it. Even those things, they're better than it hurting you, but they're still in the world of doing. There's a point where we realize, well, wait, what if what Michael's saying is true? And it is. What if it's true? What if I don't have to fight Hitler anymore? What if I don't have to fight racism and feminism? Because, my thing, I'm not going to fight any of this. If that's what I need in the moment, I'll step up, but I'm not going to hate the opposition. I'm not going to become a Democrat and hate a Republican or vice versa. I'm not interested. I don't care about any of what people think are the things that are important in this world. That's not my consciousness. My consciousness needs to be this big, and if there are problems, they need to be little neurons that I need to work on. That's all. I need to change my thinking. If your mind is this big and racism exists, let's start loving the hell out of the racism. Don't become pro-color, pro-this, pro-feminism. Don't become pro-anything. Don't become anti-anything. In my mind, it's not an option that one color is different than another. Honestly, in my mind, one gender is not better than another. I don't have to go fight for something. To fight for it means you still think there's a problem, which means there's a problem. But I'm still going to take right action because we don't all believe that yet. One time I was on the off-ramp in a certain city, pulled up in an off-ramp to the stoplight. And a guy pulled up next to me. He was in the next lane, and I saw him looking kind of upset and concerned. And I thought, what's going on? That's what you do. When you're really a miracle worker, which we all are, we don't all choose to be, but we are. Then you start having these funny, like, superpowers. And you start going, my spider senses are tingling. You start going, what's going on with that guy? So I sensed, and I look back, and there's a carload of one particular kind of race getting out to come up to the car of this guy. He's an African-American guy parked next to me. And, and he's looking concerned, but he gets out of his car. And there's like 4 or 5 of those guys. I just put it in park and get out. Because if he's going to die or get hurt, it ain't going to be alone. Somebody's got to say no. But I'm not going to hate based on race. He could have been the opposite color and they could have been the opposite color. And I still would have gotten out of the car. You see? That's the next right thing. But you don't have to believe in it. It's just in this world of illusion, it seems like it's the right thing to do as far as I know. It's the best I know in this moment. There's no way I would allow to see like a dog got hit by a car, let's say, and it's hurt, it's laying there and it's hurt, that I go, oh, well, yeah, boy, bad karma, huh, dog? That's why we call it a dog day, sorry. That's not going to be what I do. How can I help? How can I help? Ask, how can I help? When I talked about that the other day, regrets, and what somebody posted in my Facebook page was the topic of me no longer, doing workshops and stuff to try to teach more about sexual healing and sacred sexuality. That's kind of a bummer that I had to say no to that at some point. But I'm glad that when I was doing it, I was trying to say something to people that take it so far. They take it so far. They make the act itself into something they think is healing. If that were true, porn stars would be enlightened, and they're not. It isn't the act, it's the sacredness. So I would try to teach, talk, lecture, whatever. Slow it down, man, and get in the right consciousness. And that's what immaculate consciousness is, pure consciousness. And you can't do that of yourself. You have to learn to say, God, show me how to see this differently. There's these people about to beat this guy up. I'm afraid of getting involved. Violence is not very new age. Get out of the car. Just help. Oh, but I'm against that. So get out. This is what's needed right now. So I'm okay that I stepped out into the world and spoke about that topic. What's weird is that spiritual people judged me for it because it's risque. And then the Tantra people judged me for it because I was too conservative. Because I was saying, stop doing everybody. Dude, slow it down. Come on. Get a name first. Slow it down. Don't call it sacred when it's not. You have to be calling in the presence of love for it to be sacred. The contact itself is not sacred. And that's so twisted. Helen, writing the course, Helen received as part of the course thousands of words dictated to her on the topic of sexuality. And they cut it out. Thousands of words on sexuality. Now, no, it's not like, sexual twister, right hand on red. It's not techniques, It's not techniques. It was the consciousness that you're supposed to have. The consciousness. Thousands of words. They were edited out. They were brought down to a couple hundred words. But even in the couple hundred that remained, she writes in her diary notes, I'm very uncomfortable with this. Like she was with anything. But I'm very uncomfortable with this topic. And she even thought, I have a feeling. This is evidence that this isn't Jesus talking to me. I think maybe a demon's possessing me. All because that topic. So the few hundred remaining words in the course, they changed all the words to physical, not sexual. Physical contact will do this or that. And you don't even know you're reading about sexuality anymore because it's all cloaked. That's what she felt she needed to do for her own sense of safety, and that's encouraged. Be safe, Helen. Be safe, Michael, whomever. So we're doing what we need to do. But you can't wrong her and you can't wrong me, to do or to not do. There's a great poet, author, genius that said, it's not anything that's really, truly good or bad. It's man's thinking that makes it so. Right? So there you have it. It's the consciousness. It's our thoughts that make it so. So my thing was to say, there's this topic that's so messed up, and having had some of my children sexually abused and an ex-wife that was sexually abused, I took it to heart to say, let's do something about this. Let's talk about this. Let's work on this. Let's heal this. You see? I'm like, yeah, come on. And people take shots about it. So But if I would have just retired on it because they're taking shots, I would have felt weakened. I would have felt weak. I would have felt regret. You follow? So I still maintained doing it until I felt I can resolve it. I wouldn't have wanted to give up because people shamed me so. I wanted to do it until it felt complete. How do you know when your stuff is complete? How do you know? What if you have an ex-partner and they leave and you break up? How do you know when it's complete? Guys, if you're still feeling the charge, if you're still feeling negative, if you can't imagine and wish them good, and I don't mean what they did is right if they were hurtful. That's not the point. A neuron that was hurtful, one neuron in me, I'm this big, it's a neuron. That doesn't mean I'm going to sweep that neuron under the rug, that person under the rug, that memory under the rug. It means I'm going to allow it to remain in perspective and say, wow, hey neuron, what's going on? Bzzz. What are you trying to tell me? Instead of, don't trust men, it's not going to do that. It's not going to be, never be intimate again. Never give in to people. That's not health. It's going to say, take more time getting to know a person. Or it's going to say, now that things are done, wish them well and walk away. Whatever it's going to say, I need to hear it, thank it, and let the neuron close. Then it can be reborn into something brighter tomorrow. Resentment's remaining, then you're not complete. But sometimes you're complete and your partner's not. And all of us want to think that's always the case. I'm always good, man. It's everybody else that's messed up. Well, as soon as you think that, you're still messed up. As soon as you want to think and assume everybody else still has the problem, that's probably a good sign that you got lessons still. But it is okay sometimes for us to know, I feel complete. They're still a bit charged. Then just remember, when you're talking to them, you can sometimes say, and I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry I came across that way if they think you've done something. I'm really sorry that it went that way. I wish we would have caught on sooner. Words like I and we. Say you, and you're going to trigger them. They're going to be less irritated when you talk about, I know, I wish I'd have caught on to that sooner. Ooh, that's kind of responsible and loving. Because I do wish I would have caught on sooner. You see? It's like ultimately, there need not be such a huge distinction between you and your exes as any of your best friends. If they don't want to be friends, but you're doing all you can to love, forgive, make amends, apologize and make amends, if you've done what you can and they're still charged, they're charged. That's their lesson, guys. They got to do their little neuron story and fix it. That's their thing. Don't shame them for it, but don't hate them for it in any way. Just understand, forgive them. They know not what they do and they're still hurt. If there's anything I can do, I'm here. And you'll hear guidance sometimes. Why don't you say a prayer for them? How do you know you have any work to do? I'll tell you, it's very simple. If their face pops into your mind, the neuron fired. If the neuron fired, what did it fire? Did it say, hi, I love you? Great, love you too. If it fired and you went, ugh, you have work to do. That's all. You can see by how you're feeling, and we want to have holy feelings, not force holy feelings. They'll show themselves naturally. Treat even exes, treat people of challenged, whatever, an ex-boss you see. Be as loving as you can. Don't fake or pretend. I'm not saying that, but from your heart, be as loving as you can. Wish them well. I know things are challenging on earth, but I want all of my neurons to be holy. I want my whole mind to be holy, and I can't have half of it holy and think I'm getting anywhere. In the couple of significant partnerships I've had, anything I can do to help. When I got divorced in 1990-ish, it's like, okay, the house, have it. The car, have it. Most of my life, I didn't even have a car. I'm kind of frugal. I am. I'm kind of simple. I have nice shirts, but I only have a dozen of them. And I wear them all the time. I have the same pair of pants I wear every Sunday. I've told you that before, but that's it. Same pair of pants. 20 years. This is the same black. I swear to God. Same black pair of pants. I don't know what they're made out of, like nuclear waste, but they don't tear or die. I have a backup pair in case this ever, and it never happened. So I have two pairs of shoes, the Sunday ones and tennis shoes. I wear swim trunks all through the 4 seasons, freezing almost once once in a while I put on pants if I have to do, when I do sessions. Some people expect it, so I put on pants. You know? But they're sweatpants. That's all. They're just sweatpants. I don't have any nice clothes. I don't need anything. Simple. Just simple. T-shirts, swim trunks. You guys have had sessions, and you've seen me. I show up in that. And some people think, oh, this is kind of weird. You know, his hair's in a ponytail and he's in swim trunks. Like, I thought the spiritual teacher was going to show up. No. You know, it's just same guy. And I'm still as relaxed as there as I am here. This is all baggy and comfortable. That's what I like. So not a lot of needs. So when I say goodbye, a relationship ends. It's, what can I do? What can I do? What do you need? And here, you can have the car. So I always sign over a car every time, you know, that I've ever had to buy, because they're going to need a car. I mean, I don't think of, how can we get everything? Like some people think when they divorce or part ways, you know. How do I keep them from getting, I can't even think that way. What can I offer? What can I give you? Because I'll start over. How can I help? Whether it's your kids or your exes or whatever. How can I help? I'm not saying become a victim or doormat. Don't overdo. I'm saying, what can you afford to do to help? I want all of my neurons to be holy. I don't want anyone out there that I can think, I'm glad I got the best of them in that divorce. I don't even know why people think like that. Well, because of what they did. Well, why were you with them? Well, I didn't know. You did. On some level, you knew they were nuts. On some level, you didn't want to see it. I'm not saying you're bad. I'm saying just sit with it and say, wow, you do have a sixth sense, even though you may not have it developed. You do have one, but you have filters. So you knew something, a little flag went up when you met them. Hi, nice to meet you. Danger, Will Robinson, you know, like danger, danger. Something went off. And you were like, down. Hi. A little something, something here going on between us. You know, it's the strangest thing. And then, when it goes to hell in a handbasket, I can't believe I didn't know. You knew. On some level, you knew. And I'm not making you bad or wrong. I'm saying, sit and go, my mind is this big. The neuron of me that thought it didn't see that coming they're still just neurons. How much do I need to react to this or hate or do this? How much do I need to fight or defend? They're little neurons. When you put things in perspective, this is why so many masters talk about peace that surpasses understanding. You must override your intellectual understanding that thinks they did this and now I'm mad and I'm righteously mad. Past that, what if they're little neurons? Now you go, oh, God, that's so silly. You see everything from a completely different perspective. I'm not justifying hurtful behaviors. There's a wild little neuron in there and it's trying to misfire and cause cancerous things in our lives. That's not nice. People can be really caught up in that hurtful behavior. But to pretend, to think, believe and pretend that that neuron is greater than I am, that's a mistake. And when we want to remain victims, we will continue inflating, flaming, fanning that into a flame so we can say, see, I am nothing but a victim. And that's what you want to do for now. And that's one of the reasons I asked, how much do you want to hear today? Because that's the hard one to hear. Where we say, but I'm invested in being a victim. I mean, everybody likes me because they sympathize with my former life. That's my identity. Don't take that away because then I'll lose my identity. It's okay. Once you do it, you'll realize I should have done this sooner. Geez, this other identity where I'm strong and powerful. And all of us have an element of that because we're a collective consciousness. If there were only one person on the planet, even Yogananda explained this, one person left on this planet that had victim consciousness, it would still mean that neuron is still in every one of us, potentially. It's a potential in every one of us. Well, thank God we're not him. But you are, because it's still one particle left unhealed. That's why we learn forgiveness prayers that say, I'm sorry for co-creating your behavior, your experience, your hurts, or whatever there. I contributed to that. Even not knowing you, I still contributed to it. How can I help? And how I can help is to say, I'm going to bring that to me, because how can I help you if you're over there? To help others heal, I need to bring you to my heart and soul, see you as part of me, and then choose to heal that part of me that was you. That's powerful healing. Is that all making sense? Thank you. Let's do a few centering breaths, please. With each exhale, just relaxing mind and body. Just let it all go. Attention to it, let it relax. And let's absorb the following concept. A good metaphor of this whole thing I've talked about is known as the prodigal son. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but a summary. There's a Buddhist version and a Christian version, and they're both roughly the same. Both talk about a child of a wealthy man, a father, God. A child of a wealthy father/God. And the child decides to be willful and say, you know what, I just want to go do my own life. I want to go out there and do my thing. But you'll be disconnecting with the safety of this kingdom, the love and the prosperity of this kingdom. Why would you want to do that? I want to do that. That's what I'm going to do. I want my way. And it leaves. In both sides of the story, it leaves. The son leaves. The child leaves. And it's men or women, it doesn't matter. The male or female, the daughter or son leaves. And in both stories, they squander their gifts. They're given all that their father gave them, but they go out and spend it. They squander it. In other words, they lose sight of who they are. They don't have the wealth they once had. And the more they squander it like us, the more they start to feel guilty, regrets, and shames. So they become less prosperous because the wounds, getting a grip in the form of shames and guilts, constricts our consciousness, and then we're not as prosperous and healthy. They're getting less healthy, and they're getting more financially tightened up. Pretty soon they have nothing left. And in both stories, they wish they could go home, but they're thinking the guilt and shame will not allow them to return home, which is not true, but it's how we feel even in our lives with God. Undeserving of prosperity. That's what affirmation is trying to help do, is break down those beliefs. You're not really affirming something new. You're affirming what is. And the two stories split only slightly in the following. In the Christian story, the son finally goes home, is welcomed home by his father, who then says, let's celebrate that you were gone and now you're home. There's no thought about your past. When you reconnect with God, there's no thought about the past. But if you and I are going to be like God, it also means you need to stop holding people guilty of their past, even if their past was hurting you. I'm not saying pretend it didn't hurt. It did. Cry. Be held. Scream into a pillow, see a counselor. Take care of yourself. But refuse to continue the hate and hurt. In the Buddhist story, there's a slight variation, mainly in this. The son goes home, but is so intimidated that when he sees that this is potentially his father, when he sees the kingdom again, oh my God, look what I left, look what I've done, he actually faints. So the father compassionately says, too much heaven is too much for my son. It's scaring him. Let's do this instead. Some of you carry him while he's asleep, carry him off, and then just hang out with him and protect him. Those are called angels, miracle workers, and light workers. He sends some of his own servants in raggedy clothes to hang out with his son and be with them while he's gaining gradual comfort about his true inheritance. Yeah. And then, one day, the father says, this has now gone on so long, the father himself dresses up in rags and goes and hangs out with his son. And that's the Holy Spirit that comes to us acting like us, being in this with us. Of course she does. That's the mother part of God. Goes right into the trenches with us. Helps wipe our knees when we've scraped them. Gives us a shoulder to cry on when we're hurting and scared. She comes right down into the trenches with us. And then one day, God, the father, mother, who's gone into the trenches with the child, says, now it's time to let you know who I really am. Because now you've been around me long enough to where you've acclimated and you're okay. Now it will not cause you panic to come home. And that's a very similar story to what A Course in Miracles explains as well. Even the Holy Spirit will not bring things to you too fast if they'll scare you. And you might say, but I'm not scared. Bring me the lottery right now. Bring me great love right now, partnership right now. But there's a part that actually doesn't yet believe that you deserve it. And you can say, yes, I do. That's just resistance. You're trying to pretend that you do. If it were true, guess what? It would be happening. How do I know if my ego is mostly winning or spirit is mostly winning? It's very easy. Whichever one's happening. That's all, man. Take responsibility. But I have lottery consciousness. If you did, you'd have the lottery. Just relax and own it. Instead of saying, I must, I should, somebody took it from me, stop. And say, it's possible. Just say, it's possible that it still scares me to be who I really am. It still scares me, intimidates me a little bit to know that I'm wealthy beyond imagination. It scares me to know that everyone on some level actually loves me and I don't have a neediness that I thought I had. I am loved, loving, and lovable. But part of me doesn't totally accept that yet. How do I know? Because of how it's manifesting. Now, in the one story, the Christian story as we close, in the Christian story there's one other part, which is when the son comes home, the other son that was there all along says he doesn't deserve any good. Just like Jesus having two thieves or murderers on each side of him on the cross, they represent two sides of his own beliefs. And one of them says, Jesus, you don't deserve. The other says, you do deserve. And Jesus says to the one that says you do deserve, you will be with me today in paradise. Meaning, we all have those duality voices in us. So I ask you this while your eyes are closed and you're tuned in. In what ways have you been the prodigal son that has gone off and squandered? The one that was a little wild. Even if you only were wild in your thoughts and fantasies. How and where and why were you sometimes a little out there? A little edgy. Not doing things that were for your highest good. And or sensitive to the needs of others in a good, healthy way. Just own it. Yeah, I can see that. Prodigal child. In what ways were you the opposite one? That when you see other children being appreciated, you get jealous and competitive. If it's there, just own it. Just see it as a possibility. Chances are we all have all these archetypes within us. But which ones have been predominant? And in which ways have you been the role of the Father, Mother, God that forgave people as though it never happened? If you never in your life pulled that off once, you can do it right now. By just seeing something that triggers and doing it. It's done, you can tell them. Why would I judge you? It judges me as well. I choose freedom for us both. And so it is.